The first time my best friend called me her boyfriend, I almost dropped a glass of sparkling water, all over a hardwood floor I definitely couldn't afford to replace. The realtor smiled like she'd just witnessed the happiest couple in Charlotte, finding their forever home. I smiled like a man who'd accidentally walked into the wrong wedding and somehow ended up at the altar. Lily Harper slipped her arm through mine, leaned into me with the easiest smile I'd ever seen and said, "My boyfriend and I absolutely love this place." That single sentence erased every intelligent thought I'd had that morning. My name is Ethan Brooks. I was 29 years old, worked as an electrician for a residential construction company, rented a small apartment above a family-owned bakery, and drove a pickup truck that had more miles than dignity. I had spent years wiring million-dollar homes for people who argued over marble countertops, while I ate frozen dinners sitting on a folding chair because I still hadn't bought a proper dining table. Buying a house wasn't even on my radar. Lily knew that, which was exactly why I couldn't understand why I was suddenly standing beside her in one of the nicest homes I'd ever walked into, pretending to be the man she planned to spend her life with. 3 hours earlier, she'd texted me exactly 5 words. "Need a favor? Don't say no." That was classic Lily. She never explained anything until you were already involved. I'd replied with, "Depends how illegal it is." Her answer came almost instantly. "Probably emotionally illegal." I should have known that wasn't a joke. When she picked me up that Saturday morning in her little gray SUV, she looked different. Not physically. She was still wearing jeans with tiny paint stains near one pocket, an oversized cream sweater, and her hair tied into the same messy bun that somehow looked intentional. But something behind her smile felt tight, like she'd been carrying a thought around for days and didn't know how to put it down. Normally, Lily filled every car ride with stories about difficult clients, terrible coffee, or why whoever invented fluorescent office lighting secretly hated humanity. That morning she barely spoke. She turned the radio down halfway through our drive and spent more time watching neighborhoods pass outside the window than looking at the road ahead. "You okay?" I finally asked. "I'm thinking. That dangerous, huh?" She smiled without looking at me. "Usually." I've noticed. She laughed softly, but it disappeared almost as quickly as it arrived. After another minute, she finally said, "I've been looking at houses." I turned toward her. "Houses?" She nodded, like, "Decorating them?" "No." "Buying one?" Another nod. I stared for a second before looking back through the windshield. Lily had rented the same apartment for almost 5 years. Every few months she'd mention how nice it would be to have a little more space, maybe a porch, maybe a garden one day. But she'd always laugh afterward and say, "Maybe when I'm 40. Buying a home now wasn't part of the plan I'd heard for the last 6 years. "I didn't know you were serious." I wasn't. "And now?" She exhaled slowly. "Now I don't know." That answer stayed with me longer than either of us realized. I'd known Lily since the day she accidentally backed into my truck outside a grocery store 6 years earlier. She'd jumped out of her car convinced she'd totaled both vehicles. The damage turned out to be one cracked taillight and a scratched bumper. She apologized at least 12 times before I convinced her everything was fine. Instead of exchanging insurance information and leaving, we ended up sharing tacos from the food truck parked across the street because she insisted on buying me lunch as an apology. Somewhere between arguing over whether pineapple belonged on tacos and laughing at a seagull stealing someone's fries, friendship happened. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't announce itself. One day we were strangers. A week later we were texting memes. 6 months later, we had become each other's emergency contact without ever discussing it. That's just how Lily worked. She wandered into your life so naturally that eventually you couldn't remember what it looked like before she got there. Somewhere during those 6 years, friendship quietly became something else for me. I couldn't point to one specific moment. Maybe it happened the night she stayed at my apartment after losing her grandmother. because she admitted she couldn't stand sleeping in an empty place. Maybe it happened while helping her repaint her art classroom over summer break, when she accidentally got blue paint across my face and laughed so hard she nearly fell off the ladder. Maybe it happened during dozens of ordinary Tuesdays, when we'd eat takeout on my couch and complain about work until midnight. However it happened, by the time I realized I was in love with her, it was far too late to do anything about it. Losing her friendship felt worse than never telling her the truth, so I convinced myself silence was the mature choice. It wasn't. It was just easier. The neighborhood she drove into looked like one of those places where everyone remembered to water their flowers before work. Tall oak trees shaded quiet sidewalks. Children rode bicycles without their parents looking nervous. Every front porch seemed to have rocking chairs and hanging baskets overflowing with flowers. Lily slowed the SUV in front of a white craftsman-style house with black shutters and a wide wraparound porch. "This is the place," she nodded. "It reminds me of my grandmother's house." That explained something I hadn't understood before. Her grandmother had practically raised her, while her parents chased promotions that always seemed to require another move. Whenever Lily talked about childhood, she never mentioned bedrooms or birthdays. She talked about baking cookies in her grandmother's kitchen, reading books on the porch swing, and falling asleep during summer thunderstorms because someone she trusted was always nearby. Home for Lily had never been about square footage. It had been about feeling safe. She didn't get out immediately. Her hands stayed on the steering wheel. I almost came alone. What changed? I got scared. You? She laughed quietly. I know. Shocking. No, honestly. She looked at the house for another few seconds before answering. I kept thinking, what if I walk inside and realize I'll never be able to afford something that feels like home? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I reached over and gently tapped the dashboard. Then we'll find out together. She turned toward me. We? I came all this way. You don't get rid of me that easily. For the first time that morning, she smiled without forcing it. Inside, the house was even more beautiful than it looked from the street. Warm oak floors stretched through an open living room filled with natural light. Built-in bookshelves surrounded a stone fireplace. The kitchen overlooked the backyard through large windows that made the entire room glow. Lily walked through each room slowly, almost reverently, touching countertops, window frames, and banisters as though she were afraid everything might disappear if she blinked. The realtor greeted us with polished enthusiasm and handed each of us a brochure. I'm Melissa. Feel free to look around. Are you two shopping for your first home together? I opened my mouth to explain. Before a single word came out, Lily slipped her hand around my arm, looked straight at Melissa, smiled calmly and said, My boyfriend and I absolutely love it. For a second, I honestly thought I'd misheard her, not because the words were complicated, because there was absolutely no universe where Lily Harper had just introduced me as her boyfriend without warning. Melissa's smile grew even brighter. Oh, that's wonderful. Young couples have been moving into this neighborhood a lot recently. I think you'll both fit in perfectly. I smiled the way people smile when they're trying not to choke. Lily, meanwhile, looked completely relaxed. If anyone deserved an Oscar, it was her. She gently squeezed my arm. Not enough for anyone else to notice, just enough for me to understand. Please. That one tiny squeeze answered every question except the important one. Why? Melissa led us toward the living room, pointing out custom bookshelves, new windows, and original hardwood floors. I heard maybe one sentence out of every 10 because my entire brain was busy replaying 5 words. My boyfriend and I love it. My girlfriend? No, my best friend. My best friend who had unknowingly occupied every quiet corner of my heart for years. My best friend who was currently pretending I belonged beside her. That combination was dangerous. Very dangerous. When Melissa stepped into another room to greet a family that had just arrived, I leaned toward Lily, So she kept pretending to admire the fireplace, and so? How you promoted me, she bit her lip. I know. Without asking. I was hoping confidence would distract you. It absolutely did not. Finally, she looked at me. I'm sorry. You don't look sorry. I'm trying. No. You're trying not to laugh. The corner of her mouth twitched. I really am. I folded my arms. You know, most people panic and accidentally call someone the wrong name. She nodded. You skipped several levels and accidentally started a relationship. That finally broke her. She laughed into her sleeve, trying to hide it. I'm sorry, you've said that twice, as I'll probably say it again. You probably should. The laughter slowly disappeared. So, are you angry? I looked at her for a long second. No, she blinked. No, I'm confused. That's fair. I'm curious. Also, fair. And I smiled. A very small part of me is enjoying this way more than I probably should. Her cheeks turned pink. She quickly looked away. Don't say things like that. Why? Because, she paused, they make pretending harder. That sentence stayed with me. Harder. Not impossible. Harder. There was a difference. Melissa returned just in time to save both of us from whatever conversation we were accidentally walking into. The kitchen is everyone's favorite part of the house. She wasn't exaggerating. The room looked like it belonged in a magazine. Soft green cabinets, white quartz countertops, brass fixtures, large windows overlooking a backyard filled with mature maple trees. Morning sunlight spilled across the island, exactly the way photographers wish it would. Lily walked into the center of the room and stopped. Completely. She didn't say anything. She simply looked around. I watched her instead of the kitchen. Her eyes were brighter. Her shoulders had relaxed. For the first time all morning, she looked like someone allowing herself to imagine a future instead of preparing for disappointment. Quietly, I walked beside her. You really love it, she nodded. I do. What is it? She smiled sadly. It feels familiar. You've never been here. I know. She rested her fingertips against the countertop. My grandmother's kitchen wasn't anything like this. No? No, it was smaller. The cabinets were older. The windows were crooked. She laughed softly, but it felt like people belonged there. I understood exactly what she meant. Home wasn't architecture. It was peace. Melissa returned carrying another brochure. This property has had a lot of interest. Lily's smile faded. Several offers are expected by Monday. I watched the excitement drain from her face almost instantly. There it was again. Fear. Not of rejection, of hoping. The same fear she'd admitted in the car. The fear that if she wanted something badly enough, losing it would hurt even more. Melissa excused herself to answer another couple's questions, leaving us alone again. I looked toward Lily. You've been thinking about this for a while, haven't you? She nodded. Almost 7 months. I stared. 7? I've visited 9 open houses. You never told me. I didn't tell anyone. Why? She took a slow breath. Because every time I looked at one, I left feeling embarrassed. Embarrassed? I'd compare myself to everyone else. The married couples, the older buyers, the people talking about investment properties. She laughed bitterly. And then I'd get back in my car wondering who I thought I was. Something about hearing her say that made me unexpectedly angry. Not at Lily. At the people who had somehow convinced one of the strongest women I'd ever known that she didn't deserve to dream. You know what I see? She looked at me. I see someone who's worked harder than almost anyone I know. Ethan. No. You save money. You work weekends. You've built a career by yourself. You help everyone around you. If anyone deserves a place like this, it's you. She stared at me without speaking. Then, almost in a whisper, she asked, You really believe that? I don't have to believe it. It's true. Her eyes shimmered. She quickly blinked them clear before I could pretend not to notice. I almost didn't ask you to come. Why? Because, she smiled nervously, I was afraid you'd think I was being unrealistic. I laughed. Lily, I've spent years wiring houses worth more money than I can even imagine. So? I've met plenty of people living inside beautiful homes. I smiled. And trust me, owning one doesn't automatically make someone worthy of it. She looked at me the way she always did when she was trying to memorize something. Then she quietly admitted I didn't write boyfriend because I wanted to fool the realtor. I frowned. You didn't? She shook her head. I wrote it because I didn't want to feel alone while imagining a future. My heartbeat slowed. Why me? She looked down at her hands, then back into my eyes. Because every version of my future that ever felt safe somehow had you standing in it. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us moved. The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It was honest, and for the first time in 6 years, it felt like we were standing at the edge of something neither of us could pretend not to see anymore. I couldn't tell whether my heart had stopped or started racing faster. Lily didn't look away. For 6 years we'd hidden behind jokes, late-night coffee runs, helping each other move furniture, birthday dinners, and pretending that friendship explained everything. Now there was nothing left to hide behind. You pictured me? I asked quietly. She nodded. Every time. A nervous laugh escaped her. I kept telling myself it was because you know houses. I smiled. I do know houses, but that's not why. No? She shook her head. It's because every place has always felt more like home when you were there. The words settled somewhere deep inside me. I had imagined hearing something like that 1,000 different ways. None of them prepared me for how quiet it actually was. No dramatic music, no movie moment, just 2 people standing in a beautiful kitchen while strangers wandered through someone else's house. I took one slow step toward her. Lily. She looked nervous now. Not scared of me, scared of the answer. I've spent 3 years convincing myself you only loved me as a friend. Her eyes widened. 3 years, maybe longer. She blinked twice. You never said anything. I almost did. When? The night we built those bookshelves for your classroom. Recognition immediately crossed her face. The old shelves had collapsed. During summer break, and instead of buying new ones, we'd spent an entire Saturday building replacements in the school workshop. You stayed until midnight. I nodded. You kept thanking me. I remember. I almost kissed you when you hugged me goodbye. She stared at me. You... What? I almost kissed you. Silence. I drove home that night wondering if I'd imagined the whole thing. Her voice became barely audible. I almost kissed you too. That confession hit me harder than anything else she'd said all day. I laughed softly. We're unbelievably bad at this. She smiled through damp eyes. We really are. Before either of us could say another word, Melissa appeared in the doorway carrying a folder. There you two are. We stepped apart instinctively. I wanted to let you know there are already 2 serious buyers coming back this afternoon. If you're interested, I wouldn't wait too long. Lily nodded politely. Thank you, Melissa smiled. I'll let you two keep imagining your future. She disappeared again. The words lingered. Imagining your future, Lily looked down. I can't. What? I can't buy this house. I frowned. I thought you were pre-approved. I am. But barely. She laughed sadly. I've calculated everything 100 times. The mortgage, insurance, repairs, utilities. I could make it work, but I'd spend every month terrified. I understood. This wasn't about qualifying. It was about living in constant fear afterward. I hate that. So do I. She folded the brochure closed. I think I wanted this house because it reminded me of my grandmother. She looked around the kitchen one last time. But maybe I'm trying to buy a memory. I gently took the brochure from her hands. Lily, she looked at me. Your grandmother didn't make that house special. She frowned. What do you mean? She made you feel safe. I smiled softly. You've been chasing the wrong thing. Tears immediately filled her eyes. You don't need this exact kitchen. You don't need this exact porch. You don't need this exact neighborhood. You need a place where you feel the way your grandmother made you feel. She covered her mouth. And someday, I continued, whether it's a tiny townhouse or a little fixer-upper, you're going to create that feeling yourself. A tear rolled down her cheek. You really believe that? I'd bet everything I own on it. She laughed through her tears. That's not a lot. It's enough. She stepped closer. So, if I don't buy this house, you'll still help me find another one? I looked at her like she'd asked the easiest question in the world. I'll visit every open house in North Carolina if that's what it takes. Her eyes searched mine, and she hesitated. If I stop pretending you're my boyfriend, is there any chance you'd consider becoming my actual one? I don't think I've ever smiled that hard in my life. I've been waiting 6 years for you to ask. She laughed. I was hoping you'd say yes. I was hoping you'd ask. Neither of us moved for one long heartbeat. Then she reached up, placed one hand gently against my cheek, and kissed me. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't dramatic. It was soft, careful, like two people finally arriving somewhere they'd been walking toward for years without realizing it. When we pulled apart, we were both smiling. So, I whispered, so, does this mean I don't have to pretend anymore? She shook her head. No. What a relief, she laughed. I was starting to like introducing you as my boyfriend. I noticed, and honestly, she slipped her hand into mine. I think I'd like introducing you that way for real. We walked back toward the front porch together. Melissa was waiting outside. So, she asked excitedly, are we writing an offer today? Lily looked at the beautiful white house one last time. Then she smiled. Not today. Melissa looked surprised. No? Lily shook her head. I realized I don't need to rush into the first house that feels like home. She looked at me. I've already found the person who makes everywhere feel like home. Melissa's smile softened. I think that's an even better investment. We thanked her and walked back toward my truck, hand in hand. Halfway across the driveway, Lily stopped me. What? She grinned. You know. What? You still owe me lunch? I laughed. I thought the fake boyfriend already bought lunch. She shook her head. No. That was the fake boyfriend. She squeezed my hand. I'd like the real one to take me on our first date. I smiled. I know a place with terrible coffee. I'll complain about it, I know. And afterward, she looked up at me with the same smile she'd worn the day we first met outside that grocery store 6 years earlier. Maybe we can drive around and look at more houses. As many as you want. She leaned against my shoulder. I don't care how long it takes anymore. Why not? Because now I'm not imagining my future alone. And for the first time in years, neither was I.